Hi, you're watching the RRP TV. My name's Geoff Kirkwood. You probably best know me as Manpower, or maybe you've heard me release music as Bedwetter. And I'm sat here in Sage Gateshead, and I'm talking with Tom about my work as the artist in residency at this venue.
Geoff Kirkwood, better known as Manpower, is an English DJ and producer, hailing from the north of England. Described by Resident Advisor as a purveyor of intergalactic house music, he has had releases on Life and Death, Hivern Discs, Optimo Trax, as well as his highly respected MeMeMe label. Manpower, or Bedwetter, another established alias of Geoff Kirkwood, has travelled the world, appearing at the likes of Fabric, Glastonbury and Burning Man, and other iconic venues to deliver its signature sound. The RRP travelled to Sage Gateshead to discuss its latest project as the artist in residence, a step outside of the usual parameters for both venue and artist. The project offers an interesting and new music challenge for both. We discussed this project, what he hopes to bring back to the Northeast, and the proud and thriving local scene.
So let's start a bit about the Northeast. What was it like growing up here as a kid? Was there opportunities to go into music, or talk about a little bit about the culture?
I think about it quite a lot because obviously we're sitting in a building that is dedicated to music makers from the Northeast, but growing up I think access has definitely been something that I struggled with. Not necessarily that I was denied access to it, more the fact that there was a prevailing thought in the community that I grew up that music and art and culture were perfectly fine, but not something that was necessary for the likes of us. So to give you a bit of history, I come from a town called Wallsend, which is just down the Tyne River. It's actually on the banks of the Tyne. We had the Swan Hunters shipyards, one of the biggest shipyards in the world, one of the biggest exporters, and that closed down in 1991. So overnight, when I was 11 years old, pretty much everybody I knew's parents were out of work. Wallsend was dreadful in the 90s. It was depressed. There was no money there. There was nothing sort of coming our way, and you were lucky if you thought about getting a job. Never mind a job in sort of a creative industry. But I've got to be honest that I think that attitude, predates the thought of all of those kind of economic problems, and it's something that was very much endemic for the region. I think it's probably changing now, but I still do think that if you're if you're a younger person from somewhere like the Northeast or from a sort of less well-to-do area, that the options are probably quite limited to you. Partly through the idea that that your family might not understand that it is now representing a viable career, but also through your access to things like equipment. I love music from being a kid, from listening on the radio, from buying records, from everything like that, and I was surrounded by people with great, that's how I made my friends, from having similar taste in music. The difference is being an admirer of something and a participant are two different things. Now, I could admire sort of pop stars and rock stars and musicians, but the thought of me ever being able to make a living or a career in that,
and being the same as them, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It wasn't just that it wasn't thought of, it was actively kicked out of us by our community. For our own good, as far as they were concerned, it was a case of, if you're going to pursue that, you're going to amount to nothing.
You're wasting your time, you're never
going
to
get a job at a travel agent, do you know what I mean? Or working in a call centre by the time the 90s had come and rolled out, or even, working in the remaining heavy industries that we had left. It's a testament to the talent that ever did emerge from the Northeast. The problem was that for a lot of years, I think it's created an environment where people have felt the need to move elsewhere. I only got any level of success really when I moved to Berlin, and that was less than a decade ago.
And so that was something I wanted to ask you. So do you feel you had to leave to actually follow this path? Was there not, if you had stayed, would you have had the same opportunity or got to the same position you are now back when you were starting?
It's hard to say, isn't it? There's two things at stake. So there's the amount of opportunity and then the sort of the results of it. So if you go from the point of view of the amount of opportunity, I think there's traditionally been less opportunities to be heard historically if you come from
sure.
if you're regional. Yeah,
Sure.
I'm not sure that's still the case, but yeah, historically, I think if you're regional, there was less opportunities. I think moving on from that, though, you know, we've had a certain amount of huge success stories, and there is that element of being a big fish in a small pond. Means if you're the person at the forefront of a smaller regional scene, you're more likely to get hurt.
Of course,
if you get what I mean.
yeah.
So, for instance, like, you know, Maximo Park were the biggest band in the UK for a 4 or 5 year period. And they were the Newcastle band. Do you know what I mean? If you're from London, you're not regarded as being the band from London, but they were the one from Newcastle who sat at the table with people from London. So there is that kind of route that it's probably easier to become the top in a smaller regional thing, but it shouldn't really be about being the top person and being successful. What it should be about is a fertile environment for everybody to find what it is they need to get out of it.
Themselves,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And flourishing doesn't have to be, you know,
selling 1,000 tickets or 1,000 records.
It's being able to exist and sort of explore your own practice.
Coexist as well, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. It's a really good point that actually, because it's extracting and contributing to an ecosystem that sort of
which ultimately helps the people that are destined to go on and become bigger. They need the people around them. You need the support bands and the different levels of that.
In the northeast, I feel there's a high level of inequality between sort of access and capabilities for people from this region than there is in other parts of the country. I also feel that in the north compared to the south there is. I also feel that in inner city London compared to the home counties there is. It's not sort of exclusive to here, but this is where I live.
Yeah.
So looking at it from the point of view of just trying to help my neighbours to start with, I think what's really sort of obvious here is that there's, you know, there isn't the same level of opportunity for an inner city working class individual as there is to, say, somebody from a wealthier background, whether it be sort of connections, whether it be facilities, whether it be equipment, whether it be any of those things. I don't hate the person who has the more opportunity. I have nothing against them. I just think that we're in a position now where we can do things to level that out and just make it a level playing field, and then whoever has actually got the valid things to say and the valid things to do will get it. So the way that I'm looking to do that at the moment is I'm trying to set up a system wherein I can use my contacts and the people I know, and the easiest way to do that is obviously via events driven things. So if we do events that are driven to push things that, you know, that accelerate the conversations on things like equality, on inclusion, then that in itself is a good thing. But if we can do those events in a way that are part funded, but we take that funding and we turn that funding into more money by doing something that people want to know that also benefits and enriches them, and then that more money that we make, we spend on doing more things.
A sustainable
exactly,
project.
because I think there's been a kind of grant funding situation for a lot of years, which has done a lot of good, but it's basically people sitting there saying, if you give me some money, I will do that nice thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you do that,
and
I'll
stops.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, right, you wanted me to teach people how to yodel in sort of, you know, inner city comprehensive.
Yeah,
So, okay, there we go. Like, we've got a whole thing of that. There's not enough yodeling in the company. We've done that. We've paid ourselves out of it for delivering it. There it is, and it's done. And that's great. You know, they've achieved whatever the aim is, however spurious it is. But we can do more than that. We can actually take that money, and what I'm saying to funding organisations is, I can take your money. Not only can I do something brilliant with your money that hits all of the aims straight away out of the box, but it also provides employment for all of these people in an industry that's being hit hard at the moment. And beyond that, we walk away with this much money, which we use as surplus, which gets reinvested to do whatever we want with that benefits the region, and then just start doing things and literally just create it so that there's an attitude, at least in the northeast, but starting off in the northeast, but hopefully that other
things
people
got to be manageable as well. You've got to build the framework.
Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of, you know, you've got to start from something small, but hopefully lead to conversation on this. And don't get me wrong, this isn't revolutionary. There's lots of people doing this. It's not just, you know, I'm not. There's no messiah here or anything like that. It's, but yeah, sort of creating something that basically does a bunch of things. First of all, it makes the area fertile enough and that there's enough opportunity for people to come through with music. Second of all, it makes it nurturing enough that people achieve the most that they can do. Thirdly, it makes it sort of impressive enough that people don't feel like they have to leave. By all means, leave if you want to, but it's you know, it's fine if anybody wants to move to another area. It's brilliant, you know what I mean? I encourage travel as much as I possibly can, but not because you feel you have to.
Can you tell us what the Sage is? What what's your understanding of what it represents? What is the building? What does it bring to a city like Newcastle?
Yeah, I probably should have done some homework on this, because I'll be getting watched by the Sage and how I've acquitted myself on it. But yeah, so it opened up in 2014. It's mainly been funded by lottery grants, etc. It's, people see it as being the opera house or the venue on the time. It's a big, beautiful sort of landmark type of building. Looks like a giant sort of silver snail. But it's so much more than a venue. That it's involved in every level of the community, very heavily in education, very heavily in sort of community-led music programs, etc. So there's a lot of altruistic work goes on here, as well as being a very visible space for the arts and for music on the banks of the Tyne. Sort of symbolically, the fact that they built this around about close to the Millennium, just after the Millennium Bridge, etc. Symbolically, what it actually shows you is it was an investment by the city in itself, well, not the city, the region, because it's not in the city. Newcastle's there, and this is a Gateshead, but it's a big sort of sign of confident personal investment in music and arts from the region. And I think it's necessary, because there was so much amazing music that has come from this region, and a lot of it that does come back here and does plug into it.
If there's one thing you want to sort of take away from this residency or achieve with it, what would that be?
But in any terrible situation ever in your life, you have the opportunity to transmute that into something else. I firmly believe that. Even the death of a loved one, anything, it provides you an opportunity for change, and within change becomes growth, and with growth comes progress, and new perspectives, etc. So I've tried my hardest to develop a new perspective during this period, while I've had the opportunity to do so, and also change my practice and change the way that I work. And the big thing that keeps on coming back to me, that's one of the most important things that I would like to improve in general, and it feeds into the Sage, but it feeds into everything that I want to do from now on, is access and accessibility and equality. And if anything I could drive from the Sage would be to increase the access for people from working class backgrounds, or from less privileged backgrounds, or from marginalised backgrounds, or whichever way you want to do it, people who have got less levels of equality, and just balance that to make sure that they have equal access and equal opportunities. Not necessarily, people don't need to have equal everything, they just need to have the opportunity to have equal everything, and just to drive that. So from a very specific point of view from the Sage, what I'd very much like to do is make sure that other people from non-traditional or non-funded backgrounds, or non-recognised but equally as valid creative backgrounds, have the opportunity to fulfil their creative dreams in the greatest, most sort of outward possible way that they can do, whether it be like I'm doing, which is working with new creators and new mediums, or whether it's just getting the platforming that they require, or if it's getting the access to the equipment or the means or the facilities that they need to be able to create their vision, and hopefully doing something at the Sage in this way, bringing together these two things, and coming myself from a non-traditional, non-supported background, goes some way towards creating a culture, or contributing to a culture, because I don't think I'm creating anything, contributing to a culture where this becomes easier and more normal for other people coming from the same place as I am. This year I released an album in a side project under the name of Bedwetter, which was it's an autobiographical work. I was going through a period, and I think we'll talk about this and other things, that it's been quite hard, that making music that was designed to make people dance. You have to make people dance, and you have to be able to sell it, and you have to get your gigs and whatever else. And having that sort of purpose for music, and being a bit of as a Geordie, I would describe it as being a bit of an arty-farty bastard. I always wanted to include things that were, sort of allowed me to express myself a bit more than just kicks and snares. And sometimes that was making me make pretty awful music, because I was trying to force these big ideas that I had into the
wrong areas.
So you have to know that I'm more than just a house producer. I also like Nitzareb, do you know what I mean? Or I'm also into Throbbing Gristle, and you have to hear that in my music. So it was very unnecessary. So what I did to kind of get past this, is not quite writer's block, but it was something very similar. I just decided to do something that was intensely personal, that I was never going to release, and it was sort of like a hauntology featuring archive recordings of my family, of famous people from the region, field recordings of the trains from the region, ambient electronics and experimental music. And I went very deep into my identity, my family history, things that upset me, things that I'm proud of, things that sort of tug at my heartstrings, and just did it completely for myself, and then released it. it was really well received by well, not a great deal of people, because I didn't make a big deal about releasing it, but by people, I guess whose opinions mattered to me, or in areas where I was like, oh wow, it's really nice to be adopted from that. So I'd already started thinking about what the next project I wanted to do was regarding that, and following on from the themes of identity and region and sort of artistic expression and experimental sort of stuff. So Colin sent me through this thing saying, oh, they're looking for an artist in residence, and the artist in residence was like, what would your idea be? And I was like, I wonder if I can get them to do the thing I already want to do. So I sent them it, and long story short, is like, we really like the thing you want to do, how can we help you? And it's grown from sort of a semi-ambitious thing to me being legitimised by something that is so prominent. You can't come to Newcastle without seeing it, you know what I mean? It's on everybody's mind from the northeast. Whether they think about what goes in here or not, they know the shape of the building. So it's a big deal to me. Do you know what I mean?
Iconic part of it.
Exactly. So their patronage, you know, I think partially from being from the northeast anyway, and we have a kind of habit of being a bit lacking confidence, or being maybe a little bit self-conscious about sort of creativity. Partly because of that, and partly because my creativity has come from basically being part of the acid, what's grown out of the acid house movement. Do you know what I mean? Not exactly a traditional artistic background. It's not like I went to London School of Art or anything.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
college,
It's exactly that. So I've always, you know, it's like the thing where it's like, am I allowed to take part in this? And the Sage going, you're allowed to take part in this, and going, well, if you say I can, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want then. Do you know what I mean? And sort of taking it from there.
Thank you for watching the RRP. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Feedback's always welcome, and if you have a favourite artist you'd like to see, let us know.